I purposefully put my face on my book because I wanted people to recognize me because I wanted to use it as an authority tool. And yet I was still surprised when people started recognizing me. So I would go to events and people would immediately recognize me because they read my book and they had my book, on their coffee table. So they were looking at my face for a long time.
Jen Foster with the Elite Publishing Podcast. We're really excited today to interview an author who has written the book, Badass Your Brand, the Impatient Entrepreneur's Guide to Turning Expertise into Profit. We're really excited to have Pia Silva here today to talk about how you can make your brand awesome and how you can change your business into a 1 to 2 person business instead of having tons of employees and just doing it how you can do it with a badass brand. So welcome, Pia.
Thanks so much for having me. Great to be here.
Now, tell us how you first decided you wanted to write a book.
Well, I think it was a little bit of a bucket list thing. It was definitely, in the branding world, one of the things that I realized was so helpful for me and my clients and our projects to go really well is that they trusted me, that they believed what I said. And I thought having a book is going to help them trust me even more. Ultimately, my goal is that they trust me so that I can give them the brand that they need to get where they want to go, because I find that often clients are kind of in their own way when it comes to their branding and their marketing. So I thought if I make a book, then they'll see me as more of an authority. Obviously, also a great marketing tool. But those are the main reasons. And then on top of that, I did branding for experts. And I thought, I want to self-publish my own book so I can just go through the entire process and learn exactly what to do and how it works and figure out when it would or wouldn't be helpful for someone. Because even if I'm not going to train people on it or do it for my clients, I will be able to advise them on it. So it was also a way of adding to my skill set.
I like that. And so you definitely were writing the book to help entrepreneurs, but then you decided to self-publish. Why did you decide not to go with the traditional publisher?
Well, the second I looked into it and realized what it entailed, I was like, this is going to take a lot of time, a lot of energy, and not necessarily going to help me with any of the goals I just outlined. So I realized, I don't want anyone else to tell me what to do in this book. I don't want, at the time. So when we started saying badass brands back in 2012, 2013, it was actually a pretty taboo thing to say. You wouldn't know that these days because everybody says it, but I literally had people at, networking events, speeches, come up to me and say are you allowed to say that? Or kind of try to censor me. So at the time, the word badass was more of a curse word. Anyway, so, the idea, I had a lot of experiences like that. I started writing for Forbes. They said I couldn't use badass in my articles, even though it was a core part of my brand. So when it came to my book, I said, I'm not going to deal with any of that. I don't even want to try to pitch for a publisher and then start having them tell me that I can or can't say whatever I want to say. The purpose of this book is to position myself as an authority and own my brand. And I just needed to be exactly what I needed to be. Plus, I knew that I could get it to market faster self-publishing, and it would allow me to learn the whole self-publishing process, which was going to help me.
So how did you go about writing the book? Was it more just scheduling your time and just sitting down and writing it? Or was it more talking your book like some people do and transcribing?
Yeah, I feel like transcribing wasn't even a thing when I wrote this book in 2016. I have to say, I basically had already written the book through blog posts and the first course I ever made. I had made an online course the year before, and even at this time, the course itself, I hadn't gotten that much traction, but the effort that I put into explaining our process in a course was actually so valuable because that was the thinking that needed to happen in order to write the book. So the book itself only took me 3 months to write because I had kind of already written it.
Yeah.
And it was just I did it, I wouldn't say full time, but it was mostly the project I did for those 3 months. Just writing in large chunks of time when I felt inspired and trying not to get down on myself when I wasn't feeling inspired.
Yeah. I love that you repurposed your content. We tell our authors all the time, what do you already have that you've written that you can start with? Because why just reinvent the wheel? I have to rewrite everything when you've already done it. So using your course and using, your blog posts and things like that, or the articles you'd written for Forbes. And I think that's great that you repurpose your content. So smart to not to do it again.
Well, I actually, it's funny you say that because like I have a couple more books I really want to write because I've already written them kind of in the similar vein. I've already written them in content, but I have a really hard time going back into my content and like pulling things out. So even though I feel like I'd already written it, I more mean like I wrote it in my head. Like I wrote the book. I sat down and wrote the whole book, like word by word. But I mean like like I already had the concepts. So I don't know why I have such a hard time with that. AI is helping because I'm not great at repurposing my own content.
For sure. We love AI too, and it can really help to get your voice exactly how you want it and help you with things that you need to get done. So what surprised you most about getting your book published? Like what was the biggest surprise of when you had your book?
Oh, I mean, so I purposefully put my face on my book because I wanted people to recognize me because I wanted to use it as an authority tool. And yet
Yeah.
I was still surprised when people started recognizing me. So I would go to events and people would immediately recognize me because they read my book and they had my book, on their coffee table. So they were looking at my face for a long time. And that it was kind of like, that was my intention. But when it actually happened, I was like, oh my gosh, it worked. I was not expecting that.
I love that. So what would you say, or finish this sentence, because of my book, this happened? Like,
Oh my gosh. Because of my book, I built this whole other business. So I had written the book to attract branding clients, to attract people to my course that was for branding your business and, to all the other reasons. There was an unintended consequence that a whole bunch of people who also had small branding agencies read the book and emailed me or reached out to me and said, hey, I loved your book, but I really want to learn how you did that. I really want to learn how you built that business because the book isn't exactly about the nuts and bolts of how we built the business. I just kind of am using it as an example throughout the book. And there were so many people with a business just like ours asking us to teach them how they built the business that 4 years later in 2021, I decided to go all in on just teaching our business model. And that's the business I have today. And it's almost 100% of my time. And I would never have done that or even thought to do that if I hadn't written the book and gotten that kind of organic feedback.
I love that. And I love that the book was a springboard to your business that you had, and then it isn't evolved into a new business, which is still like the same business, but different, right? The model of it instead of the workings of it. So how does it feel to influence so many people with your story? Like, how does it feel now that you know all the people that it's helped? Like you said, when you run into people, they recognize you. How does that feel?
Oh my gosh, it's like pinch me. What a dream, right? It's like it's the why. It's so magical to hear from people who, I mean, sometimes I hear from people that read my book and listen to my podcast and follow me and I've never heard of them before. And they'll be like, I've been following you for years and like, I've completely changed my business because of you. And like, oh my goodness, you don't realize that when you're in your own little world over here. And that just feels, I don't know, feels incredible. It feels amazing. Inspires me to want to do more of it because I love how much it's touched people.
Yeah. If you could give one piece of advice to new authors, what would you tell them?
I would tell them to write a lot, either while you're writing your book or just like putting it out there, because the writing of your ideas and sharing them in blog posts or social media or whatever it is, I think that's what's going to make your book great. Also sharing stories and using
Mhm.
stories and practicing sharing stories is going to also help you tremendously. And I think if you do a lot of that, even if you're not ready to put it all into a book, it'll make it much easier for you to write the book later. That's really the experience I had after years of creating content and sharing stories and writing books. Writing articles, when I finally sat down to write the book, I had already written it in my head. So it was much easier to do.
I like that. That's great. Well, tell people where they can go to get your book or to find more information about you and your business and your new business model and how you're teaching that to others. Tell people where they can get
Yeah.
that.
Well, you can follow me on Instagram at Pia Loves Your Biz, BIZ, and you can grab my book at Amazon. It's Badass Your Brand, or you can grab the paperback Kindle or Audible book. Or I have a gift for your listeners. I put it up at Elite Publishing, nobsagencies.com/Elite Publishing. You can grab a free copy of my audiobook.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for that. We'll put the links up in the show notes so people can get that. We look forward to talking to you again. Those who are listening to this podcast, you could hear Pia on our other podcast, Elite Expert Insider, and find out more about her business there as well. Thank you for listening. Make sure you subscribe and like, and please share this podcast with those who you think it will benefit. Hope you guys have a great day, and thanks, Pia, for being on the show.
If you want to write a book and become a best-selling author, you're in the right place. At Elite Online Publishing, we can help you create, publish, and market your book so that it becomes a #1 bestseller. We work with a limited number of authors to ensure that they receive the best possible service. So if you want to learn how to write and publish a book that will empower you to smartly grow your brand, business, and credibility, apply today. We look forward to working with you.